In this video, I'm going to show you 3 ways to actually spot limiting beliefs, because let's face it, if this was easy, we'd have way more people rising into their full, true, authentic self, the expression of their full potential, their true self, their true soul self, the embodiment of their soul. Because clearly this is something that's not easy to do, because if it was easy to do, then we would all be enlightened. We would all be one. Not with each other, but also with the universe. We'd have way more ascended beings on the planet. And so if we look through past history and past time, you look at some of these major influencers aren't even, that's an understatement. We look at Jesus, we look at Krishna, we look at Buddha even, and all of these different beings over thousands of years that have made an incredible impact on humanity, on our whole entire species, that's lasted for eons, for centuries. This is really big stuff. And so if it were easy to attain these states of consciousness and become and rise up into our true soul selves, then we would have a lot more happening on the planet right now. We would, well, let's just put it this way. There would be way more of us that are the embodiment of our soul selves. And so this is tricky stuff, because we're up against our ego. If this was easy to spot, then we wouldn't be living in limitation. If you just look at your own life and how you're living your own life right now, what your current experience is. Do you have limitation in some area of your life that, perhaps you're not necessarily that happy about? Because if so, then there are limiting beliefs inside. And unless you're completely healed in the embodiment of your soul self, then you are going to have limiting beliefs. And so I want to talk on this topic because, it's a deeper understanding. We need a deeper understanding of what's really going on. And that's what I'm going to cover here. So after that, I'm going to show you the 3 different ways of limiting beliefs and how to spot them. And then I'm going to give you an actual way to hopefully start removing these beliefs, at least to the best of my abilities here in this video. So in terms of a deeper understanding, you have to recognize that we're working with our ego, and there's also a collective ego on the planet, meaning that each one of us has an ego, and that makes up a collective ego, which means our societal conditioning, things of that nature. And then of course we have the powers that be, that have their influence as well, that is not necessarily our collective ego as a species. This is a deeper topic, but you could say this is a different type of group of beings that are leveraging our ego and fueling our ego. And so the point, though, is that at the end of the day, we're the ones that are in control of being able to rise above our own ego and transcend our ego. Yes, we still use our ego, it's definitely integral, but the parts that aren't useful to the soul end up dying off. And so, but because we have this dynamic of our ego, it acts as until we get our power back from our ego that we've given to our ego. And I'm not going to go into the process of that, because that would take a long time to talk about. But until we really reclaim our power and reclaim our sovereignty and become the sole creators, or co-creators rather, of our reality, conscious creators of our lives, of our own individual lives, until you become the conscious, full-on conscious creator of your individual life, well, until that point happens, the ego is going to act as a separation mechanism. It's going to act as a way to distance you between you and your true soul self, your soul. Because you're always at influence between either your ego or your soul. That's what you're under the influence of. And you're constantly, based on your choice and your free will, you're constantly lining up with one or the other, for the most part. So, we have to understand that we're up against our ego's programming. Because if it were easy, then this would be a lot easier. But if we If we weren't up against our ego's programming, then it would be very easy to rise up and ascend. But instead, we have a lot of us, myself included still to some degree, where we're doing repeats, where we're still living, in limitation to some degree. And so, so it's like, if it's repeating, then we're clearly missing the mark somewhere. We're not actually getting it. Somehow we're missing a step, or we're not fully understanding the reason or the lessons that we're to be integrating from this experience that's repeating. So the 3 ways, right? It's really important to preface this, right? Because it's important to understand that this is tricky stuff, and it requires you to start really becoming conscious of your own. We'll just start with number 1, your own thought processes. So this is the first one. This is the first way to spot limiting beliefs, because when you're in it, and you don't see that you're in it. That's the whole point here. Becoming more aware, becoming more conscious. So the most obvious is limiting thoughts and feelings. The second one has to do with our sensations, physical sensations in our body. I'm going to break these down in more detail in just a moment. But the third one is what I call weathering the storm. And so coming back to limiting thoughts and limiting feelings, right? The limiting thoughts have to do with what you're thinking, and it's the content of what you're thinking. So literally the words, right? Oh man, I could never do that. That's very limiting, for example. Or man, that person is so stuck in their stuff, and it might be a fact, but if it becomes a story, and we're constantly holding this person in this particular way of perhaps judging them, then what that is that's a limiting thought. We're limiting them. We're seeing them in a limited fashion. So limiting thoughts, it's just a way to catch the content, the words of your thought stream. Now, limiting feelings, this has to do with the essence of what you're emanating from. This has more to do with your vibration. Now, your thoughts obviously are going to contribute to this, but this has more to do with your beingness, where you're operating from on a being level. And so, to be able to spot this is you want to be able to catch how you're feeling. It's very simple. You're probably not going to be feeling too good if you're under the influence of a limiting thought, because these are interchangeable, as you can probably already guess. But when you're feeling negative, then what that is that's showing you that there is a disconnect between you and some aspect of the universe. It's showing you that there's an opportunity here to see it differently in an unlimited fashion. So that's limiting feelings, right? And you want to pay attention to your beingness and the essence of which you're emanating from, whether that's with your words or with your thoughts. The second way to spot a limiting belief has to do with your sensations. So physical sensations in your body. We'll start there. So physical pains, right? If you're feeling physical pain in your body, or tightness in your muscles, this has to do with a limiting type of, you're under the influence of a limiting belief. Because in this case, your fear is constricting. Limitation constricts. That's what limitation does. And that's also what fear does, coming back to the essence of what we're emanating from with our feelings, right? Like, so you're limiting, we're talking about constricted energy, physical pain in your body. This is another way to recognize, okay, well, there's some part of me that physically that's in limitation. Another way to take a look at sensations, it has to do with your energetic sensations. So we have the physical sensations in your body, but we also have the energetic sensations, which means tight or tense energy that you can feel in your body that you might not have a physical pain with, but it's going to be a constricting type of energy that you're feeling. literally feeling constricted, energetically speaking. This is going to vary depending on the person and how sensitive they are. But as you become more sensitive, you're going to start to notice, that you're feeling more constricted, or that you're feeling smaller energetically. So this would fall under, this category of sensations that I'm covering right now. Now, the third one here, weathering the storm. Weathering the storm is pretty obvious. This is just something that I'm calling it, but it's a way to spot your limiting beliefs, because it doesn't feel good. Like you're weathering a storm. You're in a challenge. You're being challenged. Meaning that, whatever you're in, it's uncomfortable. And so, if you're not embracing that uncomfortability, then you're clearly in a limited thought. If you're suffering in some fashion, this is the obvious stuff. Like when you're in your shit, and you're confused, or you're upset, or you're sad, or you're stressed. This is limiting beliefs galore. It's all in there. And so, now in terms of a strategy, because obviously I don't want to leave you completely to your own whim, but this video is really all about being able to spot when you're in it. Because the limiting beliefs, it's tricky to get to, because your ego's consistently trying to protect you from actually fully experiencing them. So you're up against your ego first and foremost. And this is why it's really important to have a modality, something that you're professionally trained in, so that you know how to process these limiting beliefs out, or make contact with the part of you that's feeling limited, that's feeling in limitation, that's in limitation from its perspective. And it's true, at that point, a part of you is in limitation. It's feeling limited, but it's up to you to be able to make contact with that consciously and become aware of it, recognize that's actually what's happening here, and then for you to step in for that part of you and start giving this part of you what it needs in order to break out of its limitation, in order to rise up, in order to start ascending in frequency. And this is where you need a modality. So the strategy becomes, okay, so if I notice that I'm feeling, if I'm feeling bad, if I'm challenged, if I'm stressed, right? Weathering the storm. Anytime you're weathering the storm, and then, the inspiration came because I'm actually getting ready to go through literally a hurricane here in Tulum. And so that's where the inspiration came from. But anytime that you're in that process of limitation, you're being challenged. And this is a time where you can go inward and start really feeling into, like, what do you feel challenged by? And why are you feeling challenged by it? And so when you're weathering the storm, when you're feeling negative, when you're having negative types of thoughts and you're constantly beating yourself up, or you're being hard on yourself, right? Or if you're feeling really just small in general, or you're feeling a little, under the weather, or like maybe sometimes if you've ever had that experience where like you're just kind of like melancholy or a little sad or a little soft, but you don't really know why. These are all really important things to pay attention to and start catching it. So that's the strategy, is you want to catch it. You need to spot when you're potentially in a limiting belief, and then you want to walk it through your modality. You want to walk it through a system to effectively bypass your ego, get into your subconscious, and start processing this energy. Start processing the limitation or the potential limitation that's underneath what you're experiencing right now. So those are the three ways: limiting thoughts, limiting feelings, sensations, physical sensation, energetic sensations, energy moving through your body. Sometimes this can be expansive and positive as well. And there's ways to work with that energy too. But for the focus of this video, we're looking at limiting types of experiences, because it's up to you to be able to catch it. It's up to you to be able to spot it. It's tricky because your ego's constantly getting you to go into protection mechanisms. It's constantly getting you to try to numb out, try to get you to avoid these things. So that's the key, is just kind of breaking these down a little bit. I'm hopefully giving you a little bit of awareness today. And if you're interested, or you possibly need to learn a modality, a professional modality, you can reach out to me in the link below, and I'd be happy to set up a conversation and we can maybe talk about some details of that. But at the end of the day, it's really important that you get some support, that you're in an immersive environment that's constantly raising your awareness, and that you're effectively equipped with the correct tools, so that when these things start to happen, you have a system that walks you through, so that on the other side of this limiting belief, on the other side of this limiting experience, well, let's just say you actually come out on the other side. And so what used to potentially keep you stuck for hours at a time or days at a time, you can now walk yourself through a process to where you literally feel a notch up within sometimes as little as 3 minutes, 10 minutes. But we're bringing that cycle sequence down from, you know, a whole 2 days, for example, of being stuck in feelings, and now we're shortening that cycle up to now perhaps 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Because at the end of the day, you don't have to live in a limited experience. You don't have to be feeling those types of feelings and in those experiences for more than maybe a few hours. There are always exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, you don't have to really stay in these states of being. It's all up to you on actually learning, you know, getting properly educated and properly trained, so that you can not just move through these for the sake of not feeling good and wanting to feel better, but so that you actually understand and integrate the lessons that these experiences have encoded in them. You know, it's much deeper, and so when you're able to do this, you come out on the other side like you're feeling expanded. You're feeling a little bit lighter. You're feeling like you understand why this is potentially happening, and it creates a release. It creates not just a release like, you know, a healing release where maybe you're crying out of gratitude, or you're crying because you're seeing what it is that, you know, you didn't see before, and that's very moving for you perhaps. But what this does is there's a release of, there's just a lightness, you know. It's like you can move on now. You're not holding on anymore. You understand what's happening, and now it's time to integrate, and now it's time to actually take some action, some different action, and make some different choices based on the new lessons that you've now integrated. So hopefully this helps. Looking forward to staying in touch and keeping out for the next video.